Yes, please.
So yeah, so our discussion today is a discussion that we are having ahead of the Medcoms Day, which is scheduled for 22nd June. That's a Wednesday, but we thought, because today is a Sunday, it will be good to have more clinicians joining in today to talk about how we can include patients in medical communications. Now, the theme for Medcoms Day this year is to illuminate or to uh, discuss about what medical communication professionals do and how they do it, and what is medical communications, all that. So we thought we will talk about patient centricity. Why did we think of patient centricity? Now you must all have noticed how common these terminologies are today. Antibodies, transmissibility of viruses, variants of viruses, the Delta virus, this variant, that variant of coronavirus. So people know a lot more than they used to know earlier, right? So that's because information is available everywhere. And today, patients are asking questions related to medical knowledge when they visit doctors for appointments. They are reading up a lot of material on medical information. So they have questions to ask, and this increases their health literacy and helps empower the patients. They feel better informed and they feel understood when they discuss their issues with the doctors, and they're happy to be able to talk to all medical staff, the nurses, the doctors, and the physiotherapist, anybody who is in the healthcare provider segment, right? And this also helps patients to be able to make the right decisions about their own care. On the other side, this is also there that now, because the patient knows more about his own disease and is focusing on his own disease, sometimes the patients start to feel that they are the expert on that field, whereas the doctor is focusing on a lot more things. So they somewhere feel, they know a lot more info, more than the doctors do, and they try to self-medicate themselves, which is a challenge that I've seen with some of my friends during coronavirus pandemic. So today we will be discussing on how to include patient in the decision making. While we will be addressing the challenges that we need to overcome, we will also discuss who is writing the information that is required to be transmitted or disseminated to the patients. What are the different kinds of content that's being made available to the patients? Where is it being available? When should we make, when should we communicate medical information to the patients? Why do we need to do that? And how do we need to do that? To discuss that, we have this panel today. I'm Dr. Natasha Das. I'm the co-founder and director of Haslo Consultancy, which is a medical communication agency. I'm also a member of the Medical Writing Council of Indian Society for Clinical Research, that's ISCR. I have authored books, chapters, scientific articles on medical writing and research integrity. And I also peer review for a few journals. The experts on the panel today are Dr. Purvish Parikh and Ms. Pooja Banerjee. Dr. Purvish is a clinician. He is the professor and head of clinical hematology at MGMCH Jaipur and ex-professor and head of medical oncology from TMH Mumbai. He is the ex-founder and trustee of ICON, which is Indian Cooperative Oncology Network, which does a lot of workshops and awareness programs on oncology. He's the founder president of Asian Cardio Oncology Society and Integrated Academic Society of Clinical Oncology. He's the past president of the SARC Federation of Oncologists and Indian Society of Medical and Pediatric Oncology. He is an emeritus editor of the South Asian Journal of Cancer and the International Journal of Molecular and Immuno-Oncology. He's a founder member and the board of director of Asian Oncology Society and ex-member for higher studies for Maharashtra University of Health Sciences. He is widely published. He is an author of close to 20 books, about 40 chapters in books, and around 200 or 250 scientific articles. And he takes a great initiative in educating people about medical communications and has been actively involved in a lot of workshops where I am also involved. He otherwise also I've seen him doing a lot of activities. Plus he is also, I believe, sits on editorial boards of other journals, which is not mentioned in his profile. At least for one, sir, I know you are an emeritus editor of the Indian Journal of Cancer. So yeah, so some journals are not mentioned here. Welcome, Dr. Purvish. He would be talking to us about patient centricity in scientific communications, which is communications that is published in journals or in conference proceedings, those kinds of publications, which were ideally, actually previously focused more for the researchers and scientists, but now we are including patients as a target audience also. The other panelist today is Ms. Pooja Banerjee. She is the technical lead of IGCP group of publication, which is a dream child of Dr. K.K. Agarwal. Pooja manages the publications, medical marketing projects, and medical education projects for IGCP, and also is into strategic communications for pharma and biotech marketing teams. She's led retrospective research studies and survey-based assessment studies, development of consensus statements and clinical guidelines. With 15 years of experience, she has a wide range of experience in academics, research, and then strategic communication in the public health, and now in the medcom industry. Pooja's paper has been awarded the best paper at the PRS Global Open as the best international collaboration gold award in 2020. This was a paper, I believe, on COVID. Then Pooja has been involved in several training conferences and workshops, and we've designed and conducted a few workshops together. Welcome, Pooja. Pooja would be focusing on medcom for the patients, where it is focused on medico-marketing communications. So we will start with Dr. Purvish Parikh today. Dr. Parikh, over to you. I'll just stop sharing so that you can start your.
You will have to allow me to share my screen.
Yes, thank you. So, let me know if you are able to.
Thank you very much, Natasha, for that wonderful introduction. I wonder how much of that I'm actually worthy of. But anyway, let's start with patient centricity in scientific communication. So first, let's understand what is the meaning of patient centricity. There is a consumer demand to participate in healthcare, and decision making is there for all of us to understand, right? Patients' perspectives have traditionally.
Yes, interrupt you for a while, Doctor.
Yes,
maybe you would want to go to the slideshow mode.
It's not on slideshow mode.
No, it's
for
not.
you.
No, sir.
On my screen, it is on slideshow mode.
Okay.
Shall I stop and try again?
Maybe you could just click on slideshow again so that the slide is visible.
Can you see my slide?
We can see your slide, but it's not on full slideshow mode. So if you can go to slideshow on the top.
Now on my screen, it is slideshow mode.
Okay, please go ahead. It's okay. Please continue.
Okay. So patients' perspectives have traditionally been viewed through the lens of the physician or the regulator or the health plan. And operationalizing and implementing a truly patient-centric approach requires a scientific methodology, which is still being developed. So what is patient centricity not? I think this is something that we should clearly understand.
Sir, I must interrupt you again. The slide is not moving also. I mean, I can just see the introductory slide. Yeah, now I can see the person centricity is
So
not.
I should not change to slideshow mode. Yeah, only then you'll be able to.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, okay. So what is patient centricity not? It is not a public relation or externally focused initiative. It is not just about getting a bigger, better engagement with patients as study subjects. And it is not one size fits all. So if you look at my family's 4 generations, I have to deal with right from 2 years old to 91 years old. And if I, as a son and a doctor, have to communicate with my dad, I get a significant difficulty in making him understand or for me to understand exactly what he's saying. So obviously one size does not fit all. So what are the roadblocks? The first roadblock is that legal, compliance and regulatory issues are good excuses to stick with the status quo, but we have to move past that. And the other roadblock is to say that it is risky to be patient-centered. So what is it that we can do based on feedback that we are getting? We have to think about what we actually do with patient feedback. If we don't act on the feedback received, it is simply eyewash and patients are going to be aware about this. So there are the next 6 slides are for patient centricity in action. The first is to conduct studies to figure out patient preferences directly from the patient. And how do we do that? The patient experience is measured by doing surveys, having an online review, having interviews or focus group meetings, doing observations and audio recordings, and then mapping the entire journey of the patient right from the time they first phone the hospital or the doctor till such time as they leave at the end of the treatment. Now, study patients at different points along the treatment journey. I've just shown you my photographs over the years. And obviously, my requirements and my needs are different at different times. And so also it is true for patients. This is having advocacy groups to build trust and gain insights. And the common person in the 2 photographs is VG Venkatesh, who's a dear friend of mine. And she heads the Max Foundation, which is a patient support group across South Asia. This is specifically for patients who are having chronic myeloid leukemia or thalassemia. And you can clearly see that this patient support group as an advocacy group has been able to influence government policy regarding how the patients are able to avail of good treatment. The next point is to have increased transparency throughout the process of therapy development and beyond. In fact, the European Union mandates that study participants, advocacy groups, and general public require greater transparency, which is provided by lay summary. So let me give you a few simple examples of how we can simplify the language. If the scientific term is fatigue, the lay equivalent is tiredness. If the scientific term is somnolescence, it is sleepiness. If we talk about partial seizures, the patient and the family need to know that that is a seizure
pneumo ultras microscope
that starts in one part of the body. Horripilation can horrify somebody because they will not understand it, but it's simply goosebumps. And the word that takes the cake is pneumo ultramicroscopic silico-volcanoneosis. Now, which lay person or even some general practitioner would understand the meaning of this medical terminology? Whereas actually it means lung disease that occurs because of inhaling fine ash or sand. So simplifying the language is very important for a patient-centric approach. Patient centricity also means using digital solutions. And what we are doing today is a classic example of using a digital solution. And we have also used this in the past. We have got several YouTube videos which are specifically targeted at patients so that in a simple terminology, they are able to understand what exactly we are trying to convey to them. The sixth is to have a holistic approach on health. And here I've tried to show you the examples of how what food we put into our tummies will determine what is the gut microbiome or the bacteria in the gut, which are normally residing there, how it will influence the host metabolism and immunity, and finally determine whether the patient gets cancer or not, or if the patient gets cancer, whether he will get cured or not. So this cancer and the microbiome has a cause and effect relationship. It influences how we treat the patient. It has other influences on what is the outcome, and we can use this in an innovative way to make it patient-centered. Let me take an example of a very good patient advocate, and that is Kathy Gusti. She is co-chair of the Kraft Precision Medicine Initiative, which is a partnership between Robert and Maya Kraft Foundation, the Harvard Business School, and the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. They are the pioneers in the precision medicine movement, and they frequently discuss the need for the life sciences industry to learn from the consumer experience. So what are their key mantras? Developing an emotive brand to draw people in, using more social media, employing jargon-free language, and simplifying everything. In fact, this is the recommendation. Identify and operationalize strategic objectives along the patient's perspective. Track progress against KPIs and ROI goals, because unless you have a return on investment, nothing works in life. Harness the digital and data analytics opportunities to engage patients, improve their experience, and collect data on outcomes and unmet needs, and collaborate more deeply and learn from the industry. So let us come to scientific communications, and where is it that we really need to be patient-centered? One is while we are designing research and defining objectives. Second is the informed consent process. Third is quality of life. And the fourth is patient-reported outcomes. So the first challenge is communicating with cancer patients. And this was a book that was brought out by Springler et al. And Matcha Zwitter is a friend of mine who was one of the editors of the book. And our chapter in this book is Patient's Personality as a Guide to Communication Strategy. So personalized medicine also means communication to the patient in a personalized manner. In order to make it simplistic and using simple languages, our Molecular Oncology Society also brought out a patient information booklet. And fortunately, we had the honor of having our beloved Prime Minister endorsing this booklet as well. So what is the purpose? If I have to explain to a person why I am ordering a molecular test which costs tens of thousands of rupees, and I have to explain to them in a language that they understand, not only the words, but the picture is also important. So I say that before molecular testing, all these patients look same, and we were giving them the same chemotherapy. After molecular testing, I know that this heterogeneous group is actually different mutations or different driver molecular changes, and I can now decide which patient will benefit from which treatment. And therefore, it is actually cost effective to do molecular testing. And using this graphic image is a very nice way of communicating rightly with the patient. Importance is also to use lay languages in informed consent. Informed consent languages should be understandable by the patient and research participant. Patient education material should not exceed reading levels of a 6th standard student. And why they have decided 6th standard? Because in USA, the average reading skill is of the 8th standard level. Obviously, in India, it is totally different, and therefore we have to customize the solution for our patients. What are the obstacles to informed consent? As I already told you, first is medical jargon. Second is that language of probabilities is very unfamiliar to a non-medical person. If I tell them that their chance of surviving for 5 years is 37%, what does that mean in terms of a lay person is very difficult to understand. Also, everything that I talk to with the patient is also interfered with because the patient is anxious about the illness and distracted. So the attention span is very short. So there are people who have used podcasts to provide lay summaries, and I think this is a very good initiative. So the length of the lay summary should be short. Numeracy principle should be followed. So instead of being vague, be very specific. And in terms of India, if you say that out of a 100 rupee note, the chance of so and so thing happening is 47 paisa, then I think that really gives the right information to a layperson. So simplicity, as I already mentioned, it should be totally factual. Not being factual is, I think, unfair. And it should provide a high level of conclusion so that the informed decision making is possible. Now let me take an example of what is the difference between a person and the physician's perception of what the person thinks. And for this, I have taken the example of facial aesthetic priorities. The green bars represent what the person, the patient feels, and the blue bars represent what importance the physician gives to these features. So if you start on the left side, it is related to dark circles, and 37% of people felt that it was very important, whereas less than 10% of doctors felt it was important. So this is the stark differences that we see between patient perception and physician's interpretation of that patient perception. This is another example, and I think this is very important. The name of this company is called Scary Analytics, but there's nothing scary about it, except that they have got some very sophisticated cutting edge technology. And one of their initiative is VOCP, that is Voice of Cancer Patients. Now, what this does is it analyzes chatter that is going on the World Wide Web among cancer patients. Okay, it is doing it in the background. There is no direct identity of the patient or the person that is identified, but it tells you what the conversations are happening. And millions of such data bytes are analyzed. So for instance, among the 7,027 conversations regarding a drug called Zeloda, it was clear that 172 were related with the fear of having an anginal attack or a side effect of the drug. So this becomes an important thing that we need to focus on when we discuss with the patient. In another such example, for conversation amongst patients with breast cancer, 6,377 conversations were identified. And out of these conversations, 116 patients actually stopped tamoxifen before that duration that the doctor had mentioned. And the reason was that they wanted to explore getting pregnant and having a baby. So these are clearly examples of what us physicians or doctors need to understand from what is happening in the patient community. Please understand that all these efforts are there for advantages of patient satisfaction. And there are various ways that we can look at that along the patient's entire journey with the healthcare professional. And the reason is that if we have patient satisfaction, then everything is better. So I will end by giving you these take-home messages. It is morally, ethically, and legally required to be patient-centric in all communications. Experienced medical writers are best equipped to provide the right solution. Use of various social media makes our task easier. But please remember that field is still evolving. The only way to know that we are in the right direction is to check, identify, and document patient satisfaction, because that is the key that benefits all stakeholders. With this, I will thank you for a patient hearing, and once more thank Natasha for giving me this opportunity to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Purvish. That was quite insightful about, how clinicians can make patients better informed and, empower them to be a part of the entire decision-making process. Now over to you, Pooja, where you bring in a totally different perspective, where medico marketing is involved, where a pharma company is trying to sell its products or a hospital is trying to sell its services, and how we can involve the patient in that, and how we can ensure that the patient is getting the right information in the right format and has access to that kind of information. Over to you, Pooja. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Natasha. Thank you for putting this all together. You always keep doing such innovative things. And I think you are the one of very good examples of how communication should be. So thank you very much. My previous speaker, Dr. Barik, has included a lot of things in his speech, which also kind of resonate with what we do in medcoms also. So I'll just quickly take you through my slides and then we can have a Q&A session. So patient centricity, is it even viable when we as healthcom professionals or as pharma are directly communicating with patients? Now, pharma industry primarily works for patients, but when it comes to being patient centric, there is a disconnect, and it is said that pharma's patient centricity performance is low. It's not on the high side. While they are very good at dealing with healthcare professionals as being their primary customers, the truth is that it is the patients who is their primary customers. And that is also what the need of the hour is, because patients are now becoming experts of their health and much more aware and want to take care of their health. So if we talk about the viability of patient centricity, because there has been a disconnect between pharma and patient, it is the medcoms team. This is where the medcoms teams and the medical affairs team of a pharma come into picture, and they play a crucial role in achieving patient centricity. Because what does the patient need? They need affordable access to medicines and healthcare. They want transparent and credible information that they can trust, and information that can help them in improving their quality of life, and results of clinical trials that reflect real world outcomes, uh, results which they think or they feel they can adapt to their life itself. Scenario has changed a lot during the COVID era, because I had so many people calling me up when the vaccines were coming out, COVID vaccines, and they used to ask me that these results are from UK, these results are from US. Do you even think that this vaccine is beneficial for me as an Indian? Have they tested it on Indian patients? So the awareness of patients or general public, youngsters, has also elevated to a level where they know that if a clinical trial is being done in a certain population, it might not be very well reflected in another country's population or another geographical region. So we have to work on our communication, which patients can trust, patient can access it, and when they use it, it is helpful in not only improving the outcomes of the treatment but also their quality of life. But there are challenges, and that has already mentioned this. I don't think I have a slide on that, but pharmacovigilance, legal requirements, a risk, as sir mentioned, that there is a risk in how much information can you give to the patient. Then there are off-label uses of medicines and treatment. There may be questions about off-label usages, and all these, and plus a big looming risk of social media. So all this, when put together, we have to be very careful as to how much information can we give out to the patients, and how do we know that this much information is okay to be given to the patient and they can use it wisely. Secondly, how do we know that what is the information that they are looking for? So here comes indulging in a direct dialogue with patients rather than basing all our information of what a physician thinks about what their patients need, or assuming that this is what the patient needs. What we actually have to do is, and some people have started doing this also, that you directly engage with the patients, because patients want answers to specific questions. So how do we indulge in a direct dialogue with patients? Because patient wants simple answers to disease specific questions, and patients are asking very straight questions. Is this disease curable? Is there a treatment for this disease? How is it going to affect my quality of life? What will be the outcome of the treatment? Are there any side effects? And patients come to people with these, to physicians with these direct questions. So the communication has to be such that we can inform them, make them aware, and give them a holistic. We are not just selling them a pill, we are selling them health. So we have to be very careful that the information that we give to them satiates their mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So we have to be holistic about the communication so that we raise the patient awareness levels also, which will in turn improve the adherence to prescriptions, compliance to what the doctor has advised them to do. Then a very important thing that has come up and specific, especially during the COVID era, is influencer mapping. In the last 3-4 years, I have noticed that the influencer profession has grown enormously, and they have different niche. We have a fashion influencer, we have a travel influencer, and we have a health and wellness influencer. So before developing communication materials, we need to understand the measure the impact of voices these influencers have on different patient categories, different groups of peoples, involve them in our communication so that we can have a better communication through videos, through scripts, through posters, through infographics. But we need to start including influencers also in our health communication and digital communication. Dr. Parik has also mentioned digital communication, digital space has grown enormously. Most of our communication with the patients these days are in the form of digital infographics or in the form of videos. We are not simply writing 4 paragraphs with a few pictures laid here and there and giving it out to the patients. The communication, especially with the patients, has changed drastically. And even FDA, regulatory bodies like FDA and ICR, they also believe that patient-centric information is the key to improve the general wellness and health status of the population. So how do we create a connection with the patients? Because it is not easy. It is easily said that we should ask the patient and not assume. Sometimes patient doesn't want to talk about their disease, but we need to talk to the patients through surveys, through our own experiences, and understand what is the journey of their disease, what is the psychosocial impact that they would expect because of the disease that they are going through, what is it that they want to know about the disease, whatever educational materials they were given, did it help them in improving their quality of life or not? Is it developing? For example, a diabetes patient, we need to give them a complete information on self-management, and that has to be comprehensive so that they know how to use it, how to create a safe environment. They should know that if they're going for an exercise, what can a hypoglycemia do to them, when to eat, when not to eat. So we have to understand from the patient themselves as to what kind of information they are looking for before actually developing some sort of health communications for them. Building on the research, Dr. Parikh also mentioned that surveys, and there are so many ways in which, but patients today are also looking at evidence-based information. When you give them an information, they also check whether there have been clinical trials done or not. And thanks to COVID, everyone has become very aware about these things. Before developing communication, we also need to check what is the initial level of the information or what is the patient empowerment that a particular population that we are trying to reach out has. And then only plan our campaigns, health campaigns, disease campaigns. Because what happens is pharma tries to always deliver a specific message to a specific group of patients about a particular therapy, about a particular treatment or a particular disease. But the patients usually look at information which is more holistic in nature and which they can use for their overall well-being. So they are not looking at a specific information. They want overall information when it comes to health communication. Now, co-create educational materials with patients to ensure higher patient satisfaction. Obviously, when we involve the patients, when we talk to them, when we understand what the patient wants from a particular communication, uh, it becomes holistic in nature. It becomes more satisfactory in nature, and they can gain more out of it, because the health communication is not just a leaflet passing on to the patient when a patient visits a physician. It has much larger implications. It is intended to increase the treatment outcomes. It is intended to increase the awareness levels and general well-being of the patients. Innovations. Uh, Today, we have used analytics, digital space, and there have been so many new technologies that have been used. There have been so many apps specifically designed for patients where they can go get information which is credible, information which is authentic. So, while in the pre-COVID era, I think I used to make a lot of patient work on a lot of patient leaflets and those small infographics. Now we are creating much innovative health communication materials for them. I don't think I have ever written now a paragraph in the last 2 years for a patient communication material. We are making infographics for them. We are giving them steps or algorithms on how to take care of themselves. We are giving them wellness calendars. We are exploring the digital space as much as possible. All the social medias, we are creating different sorts of videos for them, information FAQs that can go on apps that the patients can use. So these innovations, because everybody has a cell phone in hand and they have easy access to information. So easy access to credible information is also very important. So we have to explore what innovations we can do and how we can actually get the attention of the patient so that they read and they find it interesting enough or credible enough to follow the information that is given or passed on to them in that communication. Some innovations, interesting innovations that we have worked on and come across during these last 3-4 years, not just the COVID era, but before that also. um, we have to understand the clinical area in which we are trying to impart the education. For a diabetes patient, the communication is completely different. While for an suppose a patient has osteoporosis, for that person, the information is completely different. And obviously, for a cancer patient, the communication is completely different. So we have to focus on the clinical area that we are dealing in. For a cancer patient, we also have to provide some counseling related communication to them, how to cope with their life. For a diabetes patient, we have to give them additional information on how to live with diabetes, how to enjoy life along with their diabetes. Then videos, not only giving them information about their disease or the treatment, but also videos on simple surgeries. there are a lot of surgeries that patients have to undergo, which they are afraid of. To alleviate that fear, in the patient waiting rooms, we have put videos on TVs installed in the waiting rooms, which replay surgeries in a very simplistic way, which a patient can see, understand, and know that there's nothing to be afraid of. Anatomical models we have worked on depicting how a disease works, how the medicine works. Then interactive touch screen. I'm sure a lot of us.
Excuse me, Pooja, for interrupting right now.
Yeah,
We have just about 10-15 minutes.
this is just my
So
last
we
slide.
need
Yes,
some,
I'll close it.
we would like to take some questions from the audience
Sure,
also. So
sure, sure. So anatomical models which depict the disease and how the treatment works, interactive touch screens. We all have seen videos from Nucleus Media, and they are excellent videos to educate patients about their diseases and how the treatment works. Printed wellness calendars, as I already mentioned, and educational pamphlets, classes. These are things that we have been doing since long. So the key to a successful patient communication, specifically in medico marketing and pharma related communication, is ask the patient, listen to the patient, learn from the patient, unlearn what assumptions you might have made thinking that the patient needs these, or the information that we just have from a physician's perspective. I'm not saying to ignore that, but include patient's perspective with the clinical insights of a physician, and then constantly evolve in developing innovative and creative ways of handing out information to the patient. So that's all from me. I'll stop sharing.
thanks, Pooja. Yeah, so Dr. Purvish has another meeting to go to, so he was asking to be excused. I've asked him to hold on for 10 minutes. So we'll first take any questions that are there for Dr. Purvish, and so that we can let him go if he wants to. To the audience, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any. I'll start with one question, Dr. Purvish. Being an editor of several journals, what is your say about the new trend of including lay summaries in research articles? Dr. Purvish, are you around? I think he's just stepped out. Yeah, so Pooja, would you like to take that question?
Yes, please come again.
So I was talking about, including lay summaries in research articles, publications, journal publications.
Yes, and a lot of journals are already doing that. We have lay summaries which provide information in a very simple language and in a very simplistic way to the patient so that they can understand. And I think that's where they have been picking all the information about the clinical trials from, because looking at the article, I don't think a lay person can take any information from that article per se, unless they read.
Yeah, so just one paragraph where you have just enough information that the patient needs. You don't have to go into details of everything, but just enough
Information that should be given to the patient, and because there is a lot of information that I don't think we need to give out to the patient also. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Any questions from anybody else on patient centricity? Yeah. So I had a question about what pharma wants to communicate versus what the patient wants to know. I think Pooja, you've already included that in your presentation. Maybe you could throw some light on, what happens when there is an information overload for patients.
Which we have seen that during the COVID era, it's a best example of how information overload has been, creating all sorts of misinformation. There was a chaos. At a point of time, people were trying to buy and hoard medicines that they wouldn't even need. So we don't, that is why the question comes in as to how much information we should give out to the patient, and that information should be directly helpful to the patient in helping the patient improve his or her quality of life and the treatment outcomes. The information should help them in adhering to the prescription, to be compliant to whatever the doctor is asking them to do. Beyond that, I don't think that they need information. But today, when a patient goes to the doctor, I think he's already shortlisted his diagnosis. Either I have this or this or this. So the doctor doesn't have to think about 50 diseases and tell the patient that you have one of these, because the patient already knows that he has three of those 50. So out of those three, the doctor is just acting as a referee. So I think that is not something that patients should indulge in. And the communication should also focus on that.
But like Dr. Purvish also mentioned, if they have in a lot of information, but not the right information, they challenge the clinician at times, and then they may not adhere to what the clinician advises them to do.
Right.
And there are chances of quackeries, right?
Yes.
So they may fall prey to quacks who give them some other information which is not evidence-based.
Yes, because Dr. Purvish has also written down an experience of his, couple of experiences of his. So yes, he says that patient centricity has a counterproductive effect, which it has. Too much information or inappropriate information going to the patient might have its own repercussions.
Pooja, also, I would like to know, how do you check the readability of a document when you prepare anything for the patient? How do you ensure it is, of a level that the patient would understand?
Firstly, the language. It has to be as simple English as possible, or Hindi. We also do it in regional languages so that it can reach out to a wider audience. Secondly, no jargons used. We were working on brain tumors, and when you work on brain tumors, you know that the names just of the diseases of different brain tumors uh, are like tongue twisters, and no patient is either going to understand that or is interested in knowing that. So what we used to do is we used to explain those terms. So we would use a phrase instead of the name of that particular tumor. We would explain it in a short phrase. So no medical jargons should be used.
Or maybe when you are using a medical jargon, please explain it in the first instance.
Explain it. If it is very important to use a jargon, then explain it.
Yeah, for example, if you are using a term like hypoglycemia, which is now become a common term, but it is a jargon, right? It is a medical term. But
so
it's
even now we use low blood sugar, and maybe we will write in within brackets hypoglycemia. That's what we do. We don't give out treatment regimens in any patient information as to first you take this, and if this doesn't work, or if you have this comorbidity, then you take this, because in diabetes the treatment algorithms are out there for everyone to see. In any patient communication, we do not give out those algorithms or treatment regimens, because patients do not need to know those regimens or start self-treating themselves, because a doctor takes a well thought out decision when he changes one anti-diabetic medicine to another. So these are a few. It has to be more pictorial so that the patient reads it. If it is too much of, if it is text heavy, then the patient might lose interest or not read it. So it has to be as much pictorial as possible, as many graphics as we can use, lesser words, and keep it simple and informative and credible. All the information has to be taken from authorized, published sources and changed it to simplified. That's what we call as layman summary. So layman summary in a creative way.
Yeah, I see a comment here. Yeah,
Yes.
so Manoj is saying, I have seen that a combination of English and regional language helps a lot.
Yes.
Because videos are most preferred mode of communication. Yeah. So
That's true.
patients
That's
tend to,
actually true. However, we haven't done a mix of English and regional languages. We have converted the entire English communication into Hindi or Kannada, or depending on wherever it is going to. But
Okay.
yes, we do translate it into regional languages for patient communication materials. In fact, we are also doing this for our healthcare professionals these days. But
But when you're communicating scientific information, is there a challenge in translating it into another language?
yes, it is. Yes, there is a challenge. So it has to go through a round of reviews, and experts have to again read it to ensure that no meaning has changed. But this happens more in case of healthcare professionals. In terms of patient communication, we don't face that challenge when we are translating it. But yes, the ones that are intended for HCPs, there is a slight challenge. But then we work with experts.
I would invite all of you here to just, unmute yourself, keep your video on if you want to, and start asking questions, or, just having a discussion around this topic. If you have any, comments to make, not necessarily a question. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask any or discuss anything, any point that you think you should. Yeah, I see Hetal also here, Dr. Hetal Chais. Yeah, welcome Hetal. Yeah.
Hi, Natasha. Good
Hi.
morning. Thank you so much, first of all, to Dr. Purvish, Pooja, and yourself for putting this very important need of the hour topic on the table. And I think we have been talking about patient centricity more often nowadays, and it is still not enough. So it is very imperative at the moment that we keep the dialogue going, especially as a community of writers and healthcare professionals who deal with bringing the information to the patient portals. So I think I really wanted to, thank and congratulate all of you for putting up this together, first of all, and especially the thoughts shared, by Dr. Purvish, mentioning that one size does not fit all. And Pooja mentioning about how you should bring the patient's reading perspective in picture when you write the content. So I think those are the take homes that I'm sure all of us would take back today. So thank you, and thank you again for putting this together.
Thank you so much for the comment. Yeah, so I would like to share a personal experience here. So this was about the recent trial on dostarlimab, right? So there's so much information about this new cancer drug, which is curing all the patients who were in the trial, right? So there's so much information overload in the public media that people who do not have a family member who's been diagnosed with colorectal cancer, they are also asking about this new cancer drug. Will it work in this cancer? Will it work in that cancer? So yeah, people are initiating a dialogue around things which are published from clinical trial results. So we have to be very, very careful there. And I found that, there are doctors who've been saying, we should not be putting out so much of information on the internet for the lay public. But I beg to differ. You cannot stop information dissemination. It will be there. Even if you don't do it through media reports, now because of open access journals, because of preprint servers, even non-peer reviewed material is available to the patient, right? Scientific information is still available for the patients. So the best that we can do is, even if it is a scientific article, we can write it in plain English with just as much of medical terminologies as is absolutely necessary for that context. And in preprints, we need to make it very clear that this is a preprint version and this is an author version. It has not been peer reviewed. And if there are any peer review comments, those should be published along with it. That's my say.
So Natasha, if I may just extend one more question to Pooja, maybe for the benefit of the larger group. Usually, typical when we deal or talk about information reaching out to patients, the larger subset is always journal articles or research papers, and now of course lay summaries. Can you throw some more light on what are the other type of publications or documents which are reachable to the subjects, I mean to the patients or the lay public in general? Where do they tend to read out for more information from?
Right. So, one of the most important places where patients get their information from is a doctor's clinic or a hospital or a nursing home where they are sitting in the waiting area. That's the place where we can not only place the videos, but also the infographics and the wellness calendars that can be given to them. That's one kind of information. Second is there are various web portals intended for patients wherein the information is given out credibly. The information has been properly vetted out by a medical writer and a clinician, and then only it goes out onto that web portal. These web portals also do proper surveys in understanding uh, what is the need of the patient, what kind of information the patient is looking at. Even we have a web portal, a similar web portal, MedTalks, wherein when before vetting out the information, we actually try to find out what information is the patient looking out for. Then there are various apps these days. So those apps also can be accessed, and on those apps, there are FAQs. There are even, question based. You can check symptoms, and based on those symptoms or whatever the result comes out, you will be directed to certain information. Obviously, all this information also carries a disclaimer that this is not health advice and you should reach out to your clinician. But the information is available on these different portals, and the age old leaflets or the leave behind that we keep at a doctor's clinic are also still working. They are continuously being developed, and we do send it out to the doctors. But these are the newer modes that, plus with social media, there are a lot of Instagram and Twitter handles. There are influencers who specifically are health and wellness influencers. There are doctors who specifically talk about a certain particular clinical area, and they are all in the form of videos. You can also contact those influencers through their DMs. So these are the different modes of communication that are available to the patient, other than what you mentioned.
Right. Thanks a lot.
Lot, Pooja. I would like to invite Manoj to speak on, how digital media is being used these days. He's a specialist in the digital media, so maybe Manoj could add a little more on, how medical communication agencies are using digital media, or how even a clinician, for that matter, even if they're not from the medcom industry, even a clinician, how can they put up information in the digital media? And what ethics and morality issues come in place?
Thank you, ma'am, for organizing this session and inviting me here. I'm sorry I'll not be switching on the video. I'm recovering from an accident I had recently. Yeah, so my experience, I'm working with a lot of hospitals and doctors here in Bangalore. And what I have observed is they have started doing these patient advocacy groups, as Dr. Purvish highlighted in his talk as well, right? So most of these small clinics also, they have formed a small groups and even WhatsApp groups. Some of the uh, I'm part of a radiology group, and they have formed a small WhatsApp group, and they start sharing all this information and uh, uh, specific information relevant to patients in that group. And there are videos which they share, there are case studies which they share, and they also organize weekly and monthly sessions for these patients to keep them informed about what is happening with their disease and illness. And this is kind of helping a lot and boosting their self confidence and the trust factor that is restored within the doctors community. And these doctors are again asking them not to refer too much of Google information or YouTube information, but get access to this kind of information from specific portals like. Frames, for example, is one of the best patient education portal, and we have CDC, WHO sites. They have their own infographic options available. There are a lot of small portals or microsites which are being created for these patient groups, and I'm part of couple of hospitals and groups here. They have created their own microsites, and since it is in Karnataka, so they have done it in Hindi, English, and Kannada, three languages. And Tamil and Telugu is also being added. There is one pediatrician with whom I'm working right now. She has started creating small videos for uh, patients, the pediatric patients specifically. And what she has done is she has recorded her own videos. She has showcased, given some demos also, which patients specifically, the parents can watch, and it can help them take care of the basic of the disease before going to the clinic. So this way, it is helping the doctors to get more patients because the trust factor is restored, and the doctors won't have to tell the same problem or the condition again and again to the patients. I know one more doctor who has created his own app wherein he keeps adding podcasts and small videos onto the app, and he just tells the patients to download the app, and the patients can access the app with that unique code which is given by the doctor. So it is not accessible to any other patients, but
And
only the patients.
one challenge, Manoj, that I see these days with clinicians is, they tend to post about successful surgeries, pictures of pictures, or even X-rays or ECG pictures of patients without their consent on
Yes,
social
ma'am. Yes,
media,
ma'am.
which they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to
So
be very careful about.
yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
maybe they are
I
not
to
aware that a person can sue them
absolutely,
for that.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, totally. I agree with you. So that is when companies, people like us come into picture. So
Yeah.
we have to guide them, and I have doing, here in Bangalore, if you say I'm doing that a lot with these doctors. So many a times doctors say that okay, they didn't knew this, okay, they didn't know this, that's why they have posted it. And another reason some of the doctors gave was okay, I don't know how to mask the name or this one. I just took the photo and then just uploaded, or I just told them to upload it. So there is lack of awareness,
And then
basically.
sometimes what happens is some patients also feel very elated that the doctor is clicking a selfie with them to post on in the internet.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that
that
happens.
also
Yes,
has
yes,
to be, that education
yes,
also
yes,
has to go to the patients that
yes, yes,
your
ma'am. Yes,
information is
right.
confidential. You don't have to share it on Facebook or Instagram.
Absolutely, absolutely. But then if you see the current trend, ma'am, patients, not just the patients, everyone, they've started sharing their phone numbers, email IDs, and everything, even short videos on the social media platforms. And they're being misused to a large extent. I came to know of a case wherein there was a girl from Andhra Pradesh, and she had posted. This was not related to patient centricity, of course, but then case of misuse of personal data. So she had posted that she's been looking for a job for so long time and nothing happened. So these are these training institutes, and some people they approached her and then they asked for certain fees, and she lost about 60,000 rupees by paying them, and then eventually she did not get the job.
That happens. Yeah.
Yeah, so similarly, I got to know about of a case wherein the patient was suffering from cataract, and somebody had posted in the Facebook group saying that this can be cured with this simple medicine, and that guy has posted a photo of the medicine also on the group. And there were about 148 comments from the patients. Call me and give this solution to me on this number and something. So what happens basically is there is no awareness. So imagine 148 patients putting in their number, and even if this guy reaches out to say 50 or 60 of them and says, okay, this the cost of this medicine will be 3,000 and you will be cured 100%, most likely there are patients who will be not minding to spend that money and get the cure, because everybody wants for a quick looking for a quick fix, right? And they feel everything is possible today. So such things, there is a lot of lack of awareness when it comes to the usage of digital tools. um, of course, I do these digital literacy programs for certain groups wherein we talk about what not to share on the social media platforms. And Just for
Wonderful,
our
Manoj.
understanding, everything,
Yeah.
and
Keep us
just for
posted
our
on
understanding.
such webinars. Would be really nice to
Yes,
attend
yes,
the
ma'am.
discussions.
Definitely,
Uh,
ma'am. I do these webinars
I'll
every
take a
Saturday, so
few comments of questions from Suma and Archana who've been around.
please, ma'am.
Yeah.
Please, yeah. Thank you
Uh,
for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Before we wind off in maybe 3 or 4 minutes, anything that you want to add or comment on?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Archana and yeah, Archana, I see your hand raised. Please unmute yourself and start talking. Yeah, Archana, you would need to unmute yourself. There was a hand raise from Archana, but I don't know if she's around. I've been asking her to unmute. Suma, are you around? Or do you have anything to add, or any questions that you want to talk about?
Yeah, no. It was just a comment regarding the trial which had 100% results. So yeah, as I think it's upfront. I mean, I know patients are not all the patients are aware that it is from a clinical trial setting, which is much more controlled. So I think, yeah, that is the main thing that patients should know before, I mean, that's what we'll have to communicate.
Yeah.
Or we give them the actual treatment, or if they want to know further information, because it's a controlled setting and not everybody maybe could not be experienced, could not be showing the same results. And also, if you see in the conclusions, they have also mentioned that we'll have to wait for long-term follow-up of these patients. Yeah, so I think we just have to wait and watch until what comes out of this 12 patients that they've treated. Yeah, it was just
also it was 18 patients who were treated, but only 12 were evaluated, right? So we don't know if the other 6 patients, one of them, if even just one of them has an SAE, that could mean that maybe 5% of the patients would have a serious adverse event.
But they weren't treated, right, Natasha? I'm sorry, I'm not fully aware of this. I'm just telling what I saw in the publication.
Okay. So, maybe
they were not. So
Actually,
SAE doesn't. Sorry, yeah.
I'll add 2 points here, ma'am. Actually, what happened is in Indian newspapers and everywhere they have mentioned the word cure, and they have mentioned the word 100% cure. So that is again not right, because it was not 100% cure, right? And added to that, none of them are talking about the cost involved. It was about 8 plus lakhs rupees of the cost involved per dose of the medication, right? So that also no one is talking, and it kind of creates a very generalized and negative impression about the whole medical communications as such.
Yeah. So basically, the take-home message is provide the right information in the right format, and also the right amount of information is important. You don't need to give out everything, all the information, but also whatever information you are giving out should not be very little, so that they don't understand the rest of it. They need to understand the implications of the results.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And in most of the publications, they have mentioned 100% cure found for cancer. They have not specified which cancer. That itself is misleading.
Yeah, Archana, I saw you unmuting yourself. If you want to add something, please unmute yourself.
Hello, Dr. Natasha. Hello, everyone. This is Archana. Sorry, I was not able to unmute myself earlier. So, very nice discussion, very relevant, because today is the era when all the information is out there, and it is like both beneficial as well as we discussed there is a problem. But I think that's where the role of doctors, experts comes in. So it was really nice listening to all the talks. I just have a question. Is there any particular challenge, any particular area where it is very difficult to convert it into a lay summary? Anybody has experience that any particular thing, it's very difficult to convert it to a lay summary or a lay language?
My
Any
personal
such
experience is in the oncology
particular
part.
field, or
My personal
anybody would
experience,
like to just share?
Archana, comes from my personal experience comes from the oncology field, where I think, explaining about treatment regimen in the oncology perspective, or explaining about survival benefits, or, anything in oncology is much more difficult compared to, say, endocrinology or maybe dermatology. So that's, as a therapeutic area, I find oncology is much more difficult to explain to the patient. So we need to be very careful about what we are conveying there. And we should
Right.
not, give them any false
you.
information that this drug is going to help you a lot, if we are aware that, it may be just marginally helpful.
Correct. I agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Archana. Yeah, so it's been a good discussion. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Dr. Parekh. I think he's walked out, though he's still logged in. He had some other engagements and he wanted to be excused earlier. Oh, Dr. Purvesh, are you here? Thank you so much. I thought you were not here. So any last comments from you on this? Please unmute yourself, Doctor.
It was a great opportunity, and I think listening to these questions really says that a lot of interest is there now, and therefore people like Pooja, Natasha, and myself, we have our work cut out so that we do a better job for our patients. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Purvesh. In fact, since you're back, I have a question that I'd been holding back. I wanted to ask this to an editor. What
Please.
is your perspective of patients as co-authors for research articles?
So I think wherever there is a quality of life issue, or a quality of life questionnaire, patients can help us in formulating the right questionnaire. Right now, we are only copying what is done in the West. For instance, as far as body image is concerned, one of the questions that is asked in USA or Western Europe is, how do you feel when you are standing in front of a mirror naked in your bathroom? I don't think that question is appropriate to our setting, right?
Yes.
But there are other things that are more important for our patients. And unless we ask them, we cannot make a questionnaire that is appropriate for our setting. So I think if they have contributed significantly to the article like any other author, then I would be more than happy to include them as a co-author.
Yeah. And if that journal follows the ICMJ recommendations, then they have to comply with all the 4, requirements for being a co-author. If they comply with all the 4, they are
absolutely
welcome to be co-authors.
I will be very happy if patients take that much of an active role in whatever we are doing, because it is shared responsibility also.
So Dr. Purvesh, if you remember back in 2008 or 9, I think we wrote an article, me and a patient physician. I mean, she is a physician who's a patient.
Yes.
We wrote an article on her journey as a cancer patient.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving us that opportunity to publish that.
Thank you, Natasha. You've done a great job, and I hope that you continue to excel in medical communication. And anytime in the future, if there is a need, please feel free to,
Sure.
connect with me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Purvesh. Manoj has a question. Manoj, this is regarding PLS or plain language summaries in oncology.
Yes.
I wanted some tips from Dr. Purvesh on that.
So Manoj, if you have any specific sentence or issue, you can email to me or WhatsApp to me, and I will reply to you. Yeah. Absolutely, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Purvish and Pooja, for being our expert panelists today. And thank you, everybody who stayed on for long. And we plan to post this as a YouTube video, and we'll send you the link soon so that, you can share it across your network so that more people get to know about it. Thank you so much. I'm just ending the meeting here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.